In this episode of DevKeel, we speak about the importance of free speech and free expression in our times. So stay tuned. Gladys, it's such a pleasure to speak with you again. And now on our new rebranded channel, DevKeel. How are you doing today?
Oh, doing great. Thank you so much. It's nice to see you and to talk to you.
No, it's a pleasure, Gladys. And it's so important, and I feel just absolutely incredible to speak with you again because last time we spoke, there was a big crisis that was more, let's say, mainstream public that was going on in Cuba. And I want to speak to you because, like, you have an incredible life experience, and now you live in the United States, and you're from Cuba, and you have a great understanding on a society like Cuba is. And I don't know, just I want to ask you in general, do you feel like in many parts of the world right now, especially in these times, that we are in a sort of dangerous moment of losing our freedom of speech and right of expression?
Unfortunately, what is happening around the world is something that I never thought it would happen in what it was supposedly is called free societies. It just shows you how delicate the idea of being free in a society it is. Just out of the blue, something could happen, and people in power can just deploy all the repressive machine that controls the people, and then all of a sudden, all the freedoms you thought you had, you don't have anymore. A good example is what's happening in Australia right now, and also in some parts of Canada. These are what you call free societies. But little old ladies, they're supposed to be wearing a mask and they're having tea with their little husbands sitting in the park in Australia. They're just thrown down by 3 young, healthy policemen on the ground because she's not wearing a mask. You tell me, Devin, what is the difference between that and what is happening in Cuba, where young people are going out on the streets without weapons, without attacking anyone, and they're asking for freedom, a freedom to travel, freedom to express themselves, freedom to buy food. The police clamps down on them, and 15-year-olds have been put in jail and no recourse because the law in Cuba is in the hands of the government. But there is no difference now between Canada and Cuba.
Unfortunately, there's this idea like in Cuba or Venezuela or someplace that, everyone's just having parties all day and dancing all day, and there's lots of economies rolling and da-da-da. I mean, is that how it is, really? I mean, are you going to the States for other reasons or what?
Well, I left Cuba looking for freedom to raise my children the way I wanted to raise them. I did not want the government to impose on me a way that I could raise my children. I would like my children to have freedom, economic freedom, political freedom, and freedom of speech. But there are very concerning signs that are happening today in Europe, in Australia, in Canada, in the United States, where our freedoms are being eroded. Basically, you have a group that says, we're doing this for your own good. Well, I already ran away from a country that imposed on my freedom for my own good, and I didn't like it. I didn't want that. I don't want the government owning my ability to pay for my own food. If I can work and if I can pay for it, I don't need the government handing it out to me because that comes at a price. Citizens need to say, no, we don't want that. We are going to stop. We're going to fight it. We're going to resist.
No, absolutely. And what was interesting about visiting Russia when I went is there were some people who wanted, when we did our visits, want to know everything about the U.S., our way of life. And then there were other people that I met who the only thing was like 3 or 4 main things that they knew about or were concerned about as related to Russia, right? And they were like interesting as well to speak to, because it was like, because they were very focused on their school and going to like a good university in Russia, and then doing like a really good program for the government in Russia, and like very like a keen sense of pride about Russia, so to speak, and the government of Russia, right? Both of those type of people I met seem happy in their own ways. What is it that draws them, or what is it that makes them happy about those
with the current situation, with the situation, just what makes them happy in a situation in which the government or society forces you to live a certain way by force? What makes you happy? Well, in the case of Cuba, you had no choice. There was no ability to leave Cuba. If you did not openly say or did anything against the government, nobody would mess with you. They would leave you alone, as long as you follow what the government would say, and you would not complain. You would be left alone, and then you could live a nice life.
That's the key.
Yes.
That's the key. If you, what you're saying, if you comply, if you say yes, if you don't make a mess, then you're fine, right? Then
you're fine.
Leave you alone. Right?
For the most part, 90% of the time, nobody will come to your house to bother you. You are given a ration for the month, and you're giving one doctor or clinic to go to, and that's the one that belongs to you. And you're giving one school to go to, and that's the one you go to. And then you take what they give you, and you politely accept it, and you put your head down, and you do whatever you're being told to do. There's no problem. We have been told that that's not the way in free societies. That we are supposed to pursue our happiness. And sometimes in a free society, what the government tells you to do does not equal freedom or pursuit of happiness. So I think the people in the United States, people are just slowly starting to realize that we are not living right now in free and open societies. We have unelected officials, people we didn't vote for, telling us when to shop, if we can go into stores, if we cannot go into stores, how should we breathe, and if we should be vaccinated with something we want or not.
I think what makes people's situation in Cuba, just from discussing with you before and now and seeing in other occasions, is they know a certain way of life because of what is only presented to them.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
But the ironic thing is that you get then all these in Havana, you get all these hotels and these tourist areas and these people coming from parts of the world with all these currencies, and they're coming with different aspects of the world, right? Other perceptions of the world. But then the people in Cuba, of Havana, they get exposed to that, and then they get confused. It's like, wait a minute, how come that person at that hotel over there can eat like 3 meals a day from like fish from France or wherever, and then I got to eat, I get rationed this food? I mean, I think that's where the choke comes, right? Like, it's like the perception gets distorted.
Absolutely. And then there is like a normal human life where you want just exactly what you say about Russia. You're curious. We find out how people live outside Cuba. We want some of that. We don't want to be given just the little crumbs that the government wants to throw at us. Throughout history, every time there is a clamp down on people's freedoms, eventually, it may not happen in your lifetime, eventually human beings find a way forward. They find more knowledge. They find a political movement that propels them towards freedom. Human beings want to be free. Once they clamp down on your freedoms, it is very difficult. Lives are lost before you can see freedom. Generations pass.
The issue that we're facing now in these times and in the world, I think precisely why this is definitely an issue in many countries right now is because let's say when you're generally, let's use the word generally, have almost every freedom imaginable as a human being, like with the way you express yourself, with the way you want to engage with people, with the way you want to choose your own work, all these freedom. When you have that like ability in a society to do that, and then you notice these fluctuations of propensities for them to say no, now not this, no, now not this. That's going to make people go crazy no matter what, right? I mean, that's an issue, right?
It's very difficult. Eventually, we find a way, because I'm telling you, I grew up in a society like that, where you couldn't travel, you could not stay in a hotel, you cannot choose the school you went to, you could not, many times, choose your work or advance in your work. You were given a position, and then that was it, for the most part, unless you were part of the Communist Party.
Right.
Then you could advance. But if you refused to participate, you couldn't advance. If you declare yourself religious, you were doomed. You couldn't do anything. You couldn't advance as a student. Many people couldn't go to university. People couldn't have a better job. They couldn't advance into positions of authority within the company. But you just adjust, and you just start, what your constraints are, and you live within those constraints. I think that the Cuban people have now, in the case of Cuba, they had an ideal that they were sold. Just like now people are being told, we are imposing these rules on you for the betterment of all.
Right.
We're doing it for the good of society. In Cuba, they told us, we are doing it for the good of the Cuban society. It's going to improve all our lives. We just want a little bit of sacrifice from you, a few months and a few years of sacrifice. If you give us that, then you will see better things are going to come for you and for your children. A better society is being created. It's always the same story.
And Gladys, the thing is, like, in a country like the U.S. that basically, like, since the beginning of his existence, I mean, as far as when people from England came, like, let's say after, obviously Native Americans were there before, but I'm talking about, like, since people came from Europe, that time, like, the whole inception of the United States has been about, you leave me alone and I'm going to live my life, right? It's always been like that. So
yes,
the thing is, especially like in the U.S., it's almost impossible for someone to come and say, you can't do that. I mean, it's a time bomb, right? Like for that, but for example, like when I watched this documentary a while ago, some guy did this tour in North Korea, and he brought a camera secretly. Like he saw two things, like similar to Cuba, or what I told you about Russia. He saw people, because the thing is, our minds are so malleable. Our minds are so easily influenced by the outside world. If we see certain messaging and things like that, like this person would go on the subway and then outside and on this thing and that thing, and he would see the same images in North Korea of the leader, the songs of the leader, the song, and when your brain hears that all the time when you're a kid, you naturally want to grow up and, like, oh, I want to have a work that serves the leader. I want to have a family that serves the leader. Like your idea of the world is to be part of that, and those people seem happy. But the point is they grew up in a system like that, right? In the U.S., you can do and be anything and act in any way you want, and then someone comes and tells you not to do that. It's impossible, right?
Well, right now in the United States, it's very, very sad what is happening because many people that are working for the government, policemen, firefighters, nurses, doctors in hospitals are being fired. They're quitting and they're being fired if they don't get vaccinated. And people that are vaccine hesitant are losing their jobs. They are losing their livelihoods. And the American people understand, they have a sense of what they and the freedoms being given, and they do not want to be forced to do something that goes against their conscience. We still have that. Thank God we still have that. And hopefully it will not disappear. It will not go away. And so my advice for Americans is if you feel that it goes against your conscience and that you are being put in a position that works, that goes against what you feel is the right thing to do, don't comply. Don't comply. Follow your soul instincts, where your body tells you. Because I'm telling you, Devin, in Cuba, I grew up, I was told what to do, but inside of me, I knew what was right and what was wrong. I knew once I became an adolescent, I knew that something was not natural, that certain things that we had to do and comply with was not natural. I knew it instinctively. And we had very little information from the outside. But instinctively, I knew when there was an injustice. We all have that meter inside us. Somebody would say it's the hand of God, it's divine instinct. We understand when there's an abuse and an injustice committed against us. We understand it. We may comply because it's better to stay alive than not to live at all. But we know in Cuba, we have known when our freedoms were taken away. Some people were very happy. They thought that they had a purpose. The purpose was to fight for the revolution and comply with it and follow the guidance of the Communist Party. And still today, some people believe that. But the majority of the people, they want their freedom. They want to work and be paid with dignity for their work. They want to have their own business without being made feel that they are criminals. They want to travel. They want to see the outside of Cuba. They want to buy their own food without having to get it from the government.
Gladys, it's important what you're saying because I think fundamentally all those main tenets of our way of life that you're talking about, we all feel them. That's the point. I think the vast majority of this humanity, like globally, really, like we all essentially want this. Like our heart tells us we really want almost the same type of necessities and ways of living naturally each and every day. Like I think it's so common. Like, and it feels almost so uncommon or unnatural when someone's like, you have to do this for this reason, right?
Exactly.
It goes against our heart's feeling, doesn't it?
It's funny that you say that. One of the things that I see today in common within the United States and the way I grew up in Cuba is that certain animosity among ourselves, one against the other. The politicians and the political environment in the country has put one person against the other, even within families. If you if you voted this way, then you are my enemy. That's what happened to us in Cuba. The government had a campaign in which they divided families. Parents didn't speak to their children. Children told on their parents, and parents got in trouble. Children just walked away from their entire families, and husbands and wives divorced. Cousins didn't talk to each other. You know how Hispanics are very familiar. They like to get together. Everybody is like a cousin and a distant cousin, and everybody gets together, and they feel like they're close family.
Mm-hmm.
That was broken in Cuba for a long time.
And family.
And it's happening today in the United States. If it doesn't happen for political reasons, it's happening today with the vaccine.
Right.
If you're vaccinated and the other person is not vaccinated, families are telling each other, don't come, you're not vaccinated. You cannot visit. You cannot see me. They are separating us, because if they separate us, they win.
Yeah.
Whoever comes up with that idea is brilliant. If they separate us, it's easier to win.
Yeah.
So they separate us with the vaccine. They separate us for the color of our skins. They separate us for the way that we think freedom should be, our ideas of how society should be run. They separate us, and then in that way they can control us.
And that of course is the most nightmarish situation that could ever occur. And it's unbelievable when you're talking about those type of people can and can't see each other. Like, I mean, for me personally, if someone had, like, before 2020, if someone had the flu and they wanted to come see me, I'd be like, stay at home, go take your medicine, don't like you stay in bed, for goodness sake. I mean, the flu was already bad enough, but I mean now, I think the flu still kills a lot of people each year, but we're never talking about that anymore, it seems like. But
so where has the flu gone? We haven't heard of the flu in a year or two.
There's a big rock, Gladys. You got to go look for it over in that neighborhood where you live. Gladys, as we finish our conversation, it's been so incredibly important and enlightening, to be honest. And like, you just have such an incredible life experience, I think. And, more people just need to understand, especially those perspectives of the ways in which we come into the world and we live, and you have such an interesting one. What is if there's a certain message of, like, action or hope that you want to leave people as we conclude this episode, what would it be, just like, so that with all the issues going on in the world, that we can really think about and take away to really make a good change going forward?
I think that we all need to really open our minds to what is happening, understand that something really is not right. Something is not right. If we think back 10 years, and compare what is happening today, you just know something is not right. You feel it in your soul. You feel something is not right. I encourage people to study history, to learn about what happens in societies that have been close-up societies, societies that have been abused and their freedoms have been taken away, and what happens to the people that live in that society. And I encourage people to not comply, peacefully not comply. That's my advice.
That is really important, Gladys, and really thank you so much. And just, again, like what we went back to, what you were mentioning before as well, like there's something inside of us, that I forgot where I read this study, but someone said that because our heart has a brain, like neurons in it, has intelligence, right? Our heart has certain like scientific neuron intelligence inside of it, and the electromagnetic field around our heart is so much greater than any other part of our body. So what I get from that, and reading that study a long time ago, is like, whatever we feel in here, there's something that must know it's the right thing. No matter what, most of the time, right? Most of the time, but
most of the time,
our heart really knows if something is really, it's like our compass, if something's on or if something's off. And when it's off, what do we do about it? And how do we make the situation better in our life and those around us? It's so important to pay attention to that, you know?
Yes.
That is, I thank you so much for being on. Oh, wait, go ahead. I'm sorry. Sorry, go ahead.
Yes, we should pay attention to our heart and understand that there is something divine in every human being. And so that connection with the divine is what propels us to have freedom, to be free. It's just, it's part of our soul. And without hurting others, we should not participate in something that we know is wrong.
Yeah. So important, Gladys, and such a great thing to take away, you know, for this episode, and just for people to really take their time and pay attention and just know more, you know, and just spend time with yourself too. Know yourself more. Spend time with what you're all about, what, you know, you believe that this life we live is all about, and just be someone that's curious all the time on this journey of life. So Gladys, thank you so much. It was such an honor to speak to you again. It's always a delight to have such a great conversation with you. And again, thank you so much.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. And we'll see you all in the next episode. Take care, everyone.
Okay. Thank you.